When we watch coverage of modern conflicts, the images are almost always the same: cities reduced to rubble, fleeing populations, chaos and destruction. The media presents war as a strictly military and political event, measured in territory lost and lives shattered. But parallel to the military event is a strictly financial one. War generates massive, predictable flows of capital. For those positioned to capture those flows, human conflict operates as a highly structured wealth creation mechanism. Every armed conflict throughout modern history divides the world into two distinct ledgers. On one side are the people who lose everything. On the other side are the people who profit. The human ledger is highly visible. These are the civilians and soldiers whose homes and lives are consumed by the conflict. They bear the physical cost of the violence. The financial ledger is mostly invisible. The beneficiaries do not live in conflict zones. They operate from boardrooms and financial districts thousands of miles away, where stock prices and defense contracts are discussed with the exact same clinical tone as any other quarterly earnings report. The United States spends roughly $900 billion a year on defense. The American taxpayer funds that budget, and military personnel absorb the physical risks of deploying it. Yet the financial returns generated by that spending are legally captured by a very small, very specific group of private interests. The most direct beneficiaries of any military escalation are the defense contractors. A massive portion of the Pentagon's annual budget flows to just 5 dominant corporations, companies like Lockheed Martin and Raytheon. The financial markets understand this dependency perfectly. In the days following a major geopolitical escalation, defense contractor stocks reliably surge. Investors treat the outbreak of violence as a near certainty for increased corporate revenue. This animation illustrates the replacement cycle. Every weapon expended creates a contractual obligation for a replacement. The ordinance used today guarantees a manufacturing contract tomorrow. As conflict accelerates, weapon stockpiles are depleted, and continuous demand for hardware directly translates into escalating manufacturer revenue. We saw this exact dynamic in Ukraine with weapons like the Javelin anti-tank missile. High consumption rates on the front lines quickly generated substantial replacement orders for the companies that build them. Active combat also functions as a global marketing campaign. When a system like the HIMARS rocket launcher proves effective in the field, foreign governments immediately place their own massive procurement orders to acquire the same technology. For these specific corporations, a prolonged state of military engagement is the optimal environment for their business models. Revenue grows with every day of continued fighting and declines the moment peace is negotiated. You don't need a government defense contract to profit from warfare. A second group of beneficiaries, commodity traders and hedge funds, extract enormous wealth entirely from the economic side effects of conflict. Traders map critical global supply chains, like oil or grain ports. When conflict threatens these routes, they buy futures contracts. Because these trades use borrowed money, known as leverage, returns are magnified. A sudden price spike generates millions in profit within days. 2,000 years ago, the Roman historian Cicero observed that the sinews of war are infinite money. The financial flows generated by conflict have always attracted those who know how to capture them. These financial actors don't manufacture weapons or aid the military effort. They built their positions in advance, legally extracting wealth by betting on the sudden global scarcity and the resulting human suffering that wars reliably produce. This massive extraction of wealth operates entirely within the law. It is sustained by a deeply institutionalized system of political influence. In 1961, President Dwight Eisenhower warned the public about the military-industrial complex, an emerging alliance between an immense military establishment and a large arms industry that could easily operate beyond democratic control. Today, that alliance functions through the revolving door. Senior military officers and government officials who oversee multi-billion-dollar procurement budgets regularly retire, only to immediately take lucrative board positions at the exact defense companies they previously awarded contracts to. When the boundary between the government buyer and the corporate seller dissolves, the financial interests of the defense industry shape the direction of national spending. The taxpayer's ability to constrain this system practically vanishes. To fully grasp the war economy, we have to look at the final balance sheet and compare the two ledgers side by side. On one side is the human capital. The average American soldier earns a base pay of between $30,000 and $50,000 a year, while assuming immense physical and psychological risk on the front lines. This graphic shows that soldier's salary next to the compensation of a major defense contractor CEO, who took home roughly $23 million in a recent year. That is a ratio of 460 to 1 between the executive risking nothing and the service member risking everything. That asymmetry continues long after the fighting stops. The national defense budget that enriches the contractors sits at nearly $1 trillion a year. Meanwhile, the Veterans Affairs system, tasked with caring for those who actually fought, operates on roughly a third of that amount, chronically underfunded for the scale of the crisis it manages. The ultimate cost of this arrangement is carried by the veterans themselves. Currently, roughly 20 American veterans die by suicide every single day, a staggering rate that far outpaces actual combat deaths in recent conflicts. The modern war economy is highly structured and incredibly efficient. It is a legally protected mechanism designed to take immense public wealth, funded by taxpayers and secured by the lives of soldiers, and transfer it directly into private corporate accounts.